One of the world's greatest discoveries of crude oil is coursing through this spine of welded steel. The vast oil reserves of Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, moving day by day through steel pipe, fused with an alloy of vanadium. Big pipe, half an inch thick, 4 feet across, 799 miles long. A strong but supple artery, rising up and over 3 mountain passes, crossing 800 streams, paralleling the floodplains of 5 major rivers. A daring pipeline, tacking back and forth across earthquake zones and burrowing beneath avalanche basins. Engineered for safety and with respect for an almost sacred land. Stepping lightly and carefully over miles of delicate tundra and permafrost. Hot crude oil, moving silently through a steel pipeline. Pumped, metered, computerized, cautious. This is the story of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, the men and women who built it, and the design technology that will take it into the 21st century. The year was 1968. From a distant Alaska outpost known as Prudhoe Bay came word of a monumental find, a colossal oil field dwarfing any previous discovery on the North American continent. But there was a problem. How to get the oil out? How to move it thousands of miles south to markets and refineries? Many imaginative solutions were considered, but nothing was so safe and efficient as a pipeline. A pioneer pipeline through an unsurveyed wilderness, requiring finished pipe of higher quality than ever previously employed in oil pipelines. Scrupulous on-site studies were made by teams of scientists over each of several pipeline route variations. In the process, archaeologists unearthed over 20,000 artifacts documenting important cultural information about early man in Alaska. Based on all of these studies and surveys, the final corridor of the pipeline was selected. Beginning at Prudhoe Bay, the route would follow the Sagavaniriktok River and Adigan Valley to the Brooks Mountain Range. There it would climb to 4,800 feet through Adigan Pass, the highest point along the route. Down the south slope, through 2 more valleys, and over the hills in Muskeg to the Yukon River. Then, south of the Yukon, the route passes 10 miles east of Fairbanks and turns south to zigzag across the Denali earthquake fault. The corridor makes another climb over Isabel Pass in the Alaska Mountain Range and drops down into the Copper River Basin. Up and over the broad Chugach Range to Thompson Pass. Then a plunge to the valley floor along Sheep Creek. And up along the south wall through Keystone Canyon. Across the tidal flats. And on to the terminal site overlooking Fort Valdez. "29 locations for temporary construction camps. 799 miles in all." As the first pipe began arriving from Japan, pre-construction mobilization had reached an urgent pace. Thousands of tons of supplies were moving north. Then, as suddenly as the rush began, it stopped. 3 vital questions demanded to be answered. Who owned this land called Alaska? How should it best be used? How could it be protected? The decision would have an impact on thousands of human beings in Alaska itself and involve the economic structure of a nation. The Great Pipeline Project froze to a near standstill awaiting the outcome of heated debates which echoed from the streets of Nome to the Capitol in Washington. The project became a silent, brooding giant. And this is why the long controversy evoked strong emotions and why it required such careful answers. For the path of the pipeline cut across some of the most imposing, untouched, and perhaps bountiful expanses of land to be found on our shrinking globe. Eventually, the multitude of apprehensions and hopes were reconciled in a pioneering work of legislation called the National Environmental Policy Act. It wasn't the giants, the mountains and rivers, or the 3 million lakes which presented pipeline designers with their toughest challenge. Here, under a soft, flowering vegetation known as tundra, is the permafrost. During the long summer days, this thin mantle of growth warms up, allowing its veneer of plant life to blossom. Yet, only inches below the surface, the ground remains permanently frozen. Experience has shown that disturbing the tundra blanket, thus allowing heat to melt the permafrost, can inflict open wounds which require decades to heal. The engineering response was 78,000 vertical steel columns that would elevate more than 400 miles of the pipe above the frozen soil. And where needed, heat exchange devices would be installed in these columns to keep the ground around them from thawing. Zigzagging would give the pipe flexibility to meet the temperature changes and earth tremors. The other 380 miles could be conventionally buried, except for a few places where refrigeration lines would keep the soil stable. Ultimately, the issues of land ownership, structural safety, and environmental integrity were resolved in the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act of November 16, 1973. Secretary of the Interior, Rogers Morton, issued the official construction permit. After 5 years, 2 months, and 19 days of lying frozen in limbo, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline project again sprang to life. The call went out worldwide to construction contractors, labor halls and suppliers, welders, pipe layers, craftsmen. An army of young adventurers and old-timers converged on staging points in Alaska. By fall of 1974, workers had nearly completed Alaska's first highway north of the Yukon River. 360 miles of gravel, as much as 6 feet thick. A separate work pad was constructed along the pipeline right-of-way with insulation planks under the gravel to protect critical permafrost areas. Over this highway, the stream of supplies quickly reached flood stage. 600 tons of parts and supplies, 6,000 tons of bridge material, 10 million gallons of fuel, 15,000 trucks. The length of the pipeline was divided into 5 sections, each with its own contractors and managers. 29 construction camps from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez, each a complete life support system for survival in the wilderness, with modular buildings for housing, food, and administration. In less than a year, men, equipment, and supplies were in place. Construction of the line could begin. At the height of construction, more than 20,000 workers would be on the job, implementing the most advanced pipeline construction technology in the world. Arctic Alaska was a tough proving ground for a stable of steel workhorses valued at more than $500 million. At 50 below zero, where steel and rubber can shatter like crystal, engines must be left running 24 hours a day. Once stopped, they would be almost impossible to restart. The never-ending maintenance meant repair, rebuild, replace, then back out to the line.
Step on a couple times. That help, baby? Yeah.
And when the crunch was really on, a tasty treat could be warmed in Frenchie's welding oven.
Come on, fellas. You want to eat? Get it. What do you got, Frenchie? Hamburger parmesan. What in hell?
Then a brief pause for a cup of coffee and a glimpse of daylight, and back to the job. At the heart of it all was the actual welding of the pipe, end to end, 799 miles. Special equipment allowed travel within the pipe for weld inspection or repair. An assembly line process. Never in history was a pipeline more closely regulated or thoroughly inspected for welding quality. The welding passes were checked by quality control inspectors, quality assurance, federal and state inspectors, with a radiographic film report on each weld. Now and then, the project even attracted the attention of local inspectors, more concerned with quality food assurance than with progress on the line.
Okay, get on out of here. Go on. Go on now.
While work on the pipeline continued, construction proceeded at the 12 pump station sites. Designed for an ultimate capacity of 2 million barrels per day, powerful aircraft-type jet engines drive two massive pumps with a third on standby. Miles of intricate wiring and sophisticated computers direct all internal operations and link each pump station to the monitoring and control facilities at the terminal in Valdez.
Bert, can you give me discharge first, please?
A 1,000-acre fortress built on bedrock. The terminal is where the pipeline ends and the marine transportation system begins. From high above the ice-free fjord of Valdez, the oil is gravity-fed through a computer-controlled system of mammoth storage tanks, metering buildings, and miles of underground pipe to loading berths located at sea level. Every step of the way, specially designed treatment facilities have been installed to carefully control the possibility of air or water pollution. At the heart of the entire pipeline system is the Operations Control Center. Two identical complex computer systems are designed to scan 200 data signals and 1,400 status and alarm signals every 10 seconds, 24 hours a day.
Oh, this is in mine. Okay. Oh, you had this special.
Okay, real fine. Right, fine.
Well, our function as a pipeline controller is to take all the pump stations that are on the line and run them in the safest and most efficient way possible. We can either start or stop, we can control flow rates, we can control valves from here in Valdez. We have microwave or VHF radio frequencies. We also have two hotlines that go to all the pump stations. If we were to have a pipeline rupture, we could close the RGVs, which are remote gate valves. Now, these are located every few miles by having a person either in a vehicle, in a helicopter, or on foot. We can effectively cover the whole pipeline by surveillance in approximately 2 hours.
Computers can do a lot of things, but it takes more than electronic brains to contend with a 3-story wall of ice. Here at the Yukon River, at the Tanana, the Koyukuk, the Gulkena, and 800 other river and stream crossings, dynamic forces such as these did not stop the pipeline. It was just another engineering problem, and there was a variety of solutions. The long, cold, notorious night of winter in Alaska was, of course, the real hardship of pipeline work. In the northernmost latitudes, the sun disappears into total darkness for almost 3 months in winter. Though their work is often slow and tedious, people can still function in these icy conditions.
You know, Alaska's got some of the most rugged terrain in the world. It also has some of the worst environmental and weather conditions in the world. It's not unusual to get down to minus 45, minus 50, minus 60 degrees in wintertime. We had from 500 to 700 men working 24 hours a day in Adigan Pass under some extremely difficult working conditions. Snowfall, very low temperatures, high winds, heavy drifting conditions, and very deep ditches in here. There was no real alternative to finishing Adigan Pass in 1976 because of the very heavy runoff here in the springtime. It was necessary to completely finish the work and get the pipeline completely protected by burying the pipeline. The basic reason why the pipeline is buried is to protect the pipeline from snow avalanches. One of the real unique features in Adigan Pass is the fact that the pipe is encased in an insulated box, and it's necessary to put it in an insulated box deeply buried to prevent the thawing out of the ice-rich silts that surround the pipeline. Once we're out of the pass, there's no longer any danger of avalanches, and we're able to move the pipe up out of the ground. Now, most of the above-ground pipeline is built by working off of a work pad, a gravel work pad. But there's a 5-mile length of line in here where, because of problems in finding enough gravel, we decided to build a pipeline off of a snow pad. So we built a 2-foot thick snow pad in here by making snow, hauling the snow and placing it and compacting it, and then building the pipeline off of the snow pad. All in all, some extremely difficult working conditions. It was done, though, with there's an awful lot of esprit de corps. The people involved in building this part of the line knew it was one of the more difficult parts of the line, and I think that, coupled with the fact that they wanted to go home for Christmas, enabled us to get the thing done before the 1st of December.
No change required except for those heavy loads.
And for a good copy. Thank you much. KWJ863, Chandelar, Claire. Current weather at Chandelar. Temperature is 0. Winds are calm. Visibility is 15 miles. Road conditions, Adigan Pass and Chandeleur Shelf are both in good winter driving condition. Entertainment scheduled for this evening at Chandeleur. On television at 7 o'clock, NBC News. 7:30, Starsky and Hutch. 8:30, Bicentennial Hall of Fame, Valley Forge. Tonight, for your special entertainment, anyone interested in getting together and playing, listening, or even singing some folk rock tunes, drop by the Chandeleur Theater. Performers from the electrical, plumbing, and laborers' unions will be there, maybe even the Teamster. Sorry.
The individual rooms generally accommodated 2 workers and came furnished with bed, desk, and wardrobe. But there were a few maverick interior decorators who managed to set up all the comforts of home.
I've worked out in the Gulf, overseas in the jungles, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Nothing to compare to this. They've no mountain like Thompson Pass. This is a granddaddy.
Human beings have often pictured themselves as doing battle with the elements, but seldom has that image become so real and so personal as it did just a few miles from Valdez. The place is called Thompson Pass, and it was something to remember. Dropping over 1,800 feet at angles nearing 45 degrees, this treacherous incline of wet, rotten rock and glacial mud and silt was to become one of the most challenging obstacles to pipeline technology in history. Because of the excessive steepness, side booms were useless, and a unique cableway system had to be designed to fly the 10-ton pipe sections to each area being worked on.
Extension number 2. 799, they've just called a temporary halt to flying. They've encountered turbulence and also freezing rain at the 1,000-foot level. Until that subsides, they're not going to be able to fly.
Snow, wind, rain, anything, sleet, anything you could imagine. It's been thawing of the ground and letting the boulders come at you. Yeah, every day you had the danger of the rocks hitting you or the pipe getting loose and coming down on you. It's the most dangerous job I've ever seen, pipeline. Before we got these stirrups made up, weld off of, we had to hang by a safety belt. You had to hang right on top and weld with the safety belt holding you. That's all you had to hold you with the safety belt, nothing else. I felt like I was trying to wash the windows on the Empire State Building. Everybody seemed to be concerned about each other, so that really made it nice, too. They were real cool, and that's the kind of people that made it.
It was the people who made the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. It was flesh and blood that nursed monster machines through the incredible cold of the tundra, threaded pipe through avalanche areas in Adigan Pass, dug ditches under icy rivers, and hoisted 10-ton tubes of steel over dizzy peaks where only mountain climbers had ventured before.
Not till we made the last whale, or the last 2 days, you felt safe. I'd like to say this, too, that I think the Lord had something to do with us coming up and nothing bad happening. He looked after us. If they lay another, they better not go over Thompson Pass, or I won't be there.
There may or may not be another job to match the great Trans-Alaska oil pipeline. But for the men and women who worked it, it is enough to say for now that they did the job well. All 799 unforgettable miles of it. And they did it on time.